Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Dear Goddess. I'm Kel Karuna, spiritual mentor, transformation coach, somatic healer, author, speaker, and your host of the Dear Goddess podcast, which is your favorite podcast for all things self-love, healing, spirituality, transformation, and really just talking about this journey that we're on in a very real and authentic way, which we're definitely going to be getting real and raw today. So I am excited and also not so excited for today's episode because we're going to be having a conversation about some misconceptions with following your intuition. And I'm going to be sharing some things I'm moving through in real time. And yeah, it kind of is breaking my heart. And that's the thing. Sometimes following your intuition will break your heart. So that's the conversation that we're having today. But first, a few things. I have our oracle card because I did this last episode and I liked it. I thought it was really fun just to kind of see how the episode unfolded in alignment with the card and also to just share this intuitive message with you. And the card today, again, from the Rose Oracle deck by Rebecca Campbell. And this makes a lot of sense because I already kind of know the conversation that we're having. So this is the Sophia card, and Sophia is just like pure divine feminine consciousness. But this card represents divine plan, wisdom, intelligence within, and destiny. So already on brand with this conversation that we're going to be having about intuition, which was also the theme of the last episode. So in the last episode, we were discussing how to really differentiate between your intuition and if something is in alignment for you versus is it just fear or a trauma response. And if I'm fully honest, what I experienced, the stories I shared last episode were probably a bit of a trauma response. And that's okay because this shit is coming up so that we can see it and so that we can meet these parts of ourselves in new ways and to hold ourselves with grace and compassion and not just keep repeating these patterns. But before we really dive into today's conversation about misconceptions with following your intuition, I just want to speak to the experiment I mentioned last episode. So as you can see, I am still in a different environment. I'm literally just in my room, and I was also here last episode as well, which is different than the first few episodes where I was in this like podcast recording space that I rented out, and I decided to do this experiment that's like a science project. I'm gonna test a few things, and this is actually a really powerful way to live your life, to view it as this like experiment and you're just gonna try some things out and everything is neutral, right? Like when you're doing like science projects, and I don't know, maybe you're a scientist. I'm not. I'm like flashing back to like elementary school and middle school and like high school science class where we were doing like science experiments and things like that. And it's all very neutral, right? It's like you're testing different things. It's not like I'm unworthy if this happens or I'm not good enough if that happens. It's like, no, we're just like doing an experiment. It's not about you. And when we can bring this approach to life, it allows us to be just a bit more neutral and not let our own shit get all tangled up in it. And if our shit does get tangled up in it, then beautiful. Notice that, because awareness is always the first step to healing and to change. And if you're noticing it, it's because it's meant to be seen, it's meant to be witnessed, it's meant to be untangled and peeled back. So I have mentioned that the relaunch of the podcast, so Dear Goddess, the evolution from Dear Dumb Bitch to Dear Goddess, has been such a portal of initiation. And if I'm fully honest, it's been a bit frustrating in some ways because I just felt like I was not showing up the way I desire to show up and the way that I know that I'm capable of showing up. And I've really, really been leaning into this because initially I was like, am I just having a relapse with perfectionism and I'm having these unrealistic expectations of I feel like I should be speaking and podcasting at this level, and it's like, well, like you have to actually show up and practice and develop the skills to get to that level? Or am I just having some disconnect with myself in this moment? Like, what is it? And, curiosity is so important because when we can get curious about ourselves and when we can really lean into what we're experiencing and what's showing up, we're approaching it from a place of understanding rather than a place of judgment. When I leaned in, I could see that I just felt like I was not showing up authentically. And authenticity is one of my values. So it really felt like this like soul of like not showing up as my true self. And authenticity is a frequency, and it's something that your nervous system has to be regulated and really recalibrated too, because authenticity, if you think about it, really goes against all of our human conditioning. If you think back to childhood, when we start to develop our ego and we start to develop our personality, which means we start to develop our trauma responses and our coping mechanisms, we begin to wear these masks of who we think we need to be in order to be liked and loved and accepted and all the things. And we disconnect from our true authentic self. And our nervous system becomes programmed to those other versions of ourselves because that's survival. That's who we need to be to stay in the tribe. And simultaneously, we're internalizing everything and making it mean something about ourselves, because if it's about our caregivers and their trauma, then we are fucked. We're fucked because they can't provide for us. They can't protect us. We could go deep with this, but this is another episode. But coming back to the authenticity component, so this journey of authenticity and stepping into your most authentic self is really this journey of peeling back all of the layers, unlearning who you aren't, discovering who you really are at like a soul level. And this is the journey that I've been on for many years, especially since arriving in Bali, which was just the deepest portal of healing in my entire life so far, at least in this lifetime. And as I have been really stepping into more of a leadership role and using my soul's gifts, writing a book, speaking on international stages, I've really been developing my authentic expression. So it was really frustrating to be showing up and recording these episodes and feeling like a fucking robot. I'm just like, where did my energy go? Like, that doesn't feel like me. And part of it is, yes, meeting yourself with grace and compassion as you're showing up for yourself and doing new things and giving yourself time and space to grow and expand and not being hard on yourself. But also, I had this realization that I was kind of doing things that I thought I should be doing and things that weren't really feeling true for me. Like even some of the topics I was sharing. So the other day I recorded 2 episodes, and after I'm just like, what the fuck just happened? Like that did not feel like me talking. I felt like some type of reporter, like, hello, welcome to my news show. It just felt so much like a performance. And this is so common and so normal, especially as we are really opening up our voice and authentic expression. But at the same time, I've experienced myself showing up authentically in other capacities. So I'm like, I know what I'm capable of. So let me just try a few things to see. So after recording 2 episodes and just feeling like this isn't it, I got curious and I realized that, first of all, the topics of the episodes weren't really that exciting for me. They weren't really things that I'm moving through right now. They were about things that happened in the past, and it just didn't really feel that aligned to be speaking about. And also, the whole setup in that room, it just felt very sterile. I mean, there were fake plans, and it just felt like this big production. I would see the countdown. It'd be like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, action. All right, turn it on. And it really just activated a lot of patterns of like performance. And for most of my life, I really felt like I needed to be like a version of myself to be liked, to be loved, and welcome to the human condition. But as I have really transcended that, it was just weird to see it showing up again. So I'm like, okay, let me try a few things. First of all, let me just try recording in my own space, in a place that the energy feels good for me, where I feel really comfortable. Let me just support my nervous system a little bit here. I incorporated more rituals before to really support my nervous system, feeling grounded, feeling connected to my body and my heart, and to the message that I want to share, and to really just holding the prayer of authentic expression and just letting it be me. So incorporated a few more rituals, decided to just talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about and not like what I think I should be doing. And one of my favorite parts about Dear Dumb Bitch, I'm like, wait, what podcast are we on now? One of my favorite parts about Dear Dumb Bitch was the storytelling aspect of it and being able to just share more of what I'm moving through in my real life with you. So I'm like, all right, let me just go back to what I actually enjoy doing and let's see if that changes anything. And I feel it has. Will I ever record in a podcast studio again? 100% I will. And I have this vision of actually having my own podcast studio one day. But for now, I am doing what feels really good for me. So is the lighting great? No, the lighting sucks. Is it completely soundproof? No, you might hear some dogs barking in the background. But I am meeting myself where I'm at as I explore these new edges. And this feels good. This feels authentic. This feels aligned. So that was the whole science experiment. And when I recorded the last episode, I really approached it from a place of I'm just going to let it be an experiment and just see what happens and just have fun, because I was not having fun before. It just felt so hard and it felt so frustrating. And I'm like, I'm not having a good time. And if I'm fully honest, I'm doing this to have a good time. Yes, I am absolutely showing up in service to support you and to be a resource for you, but only doing so in a way that feels good for me. Like, ladies or gentlemen, if you are listening to this, we are not martyrs. We're not here to sacrifice ourselves. So if it doesn't feel good for me, then I'm not available for it. And let's not overthink this. There are caveats. Sometimes we will have to do things that are stretching us and are a bit uncomfortable, because that's how we grow. But ultimately, we want to make sure that we're doing things that are in alignment and are allowing us to feel more alive, and things that when you look back on, you'll be glad that you did. Okay, so let's move into today's episode. Now, mind you, I just recorded the episode that is being released yesterday, because of the whole experiment thing. And I'm recording again because this weekend I am going to be sitting with some medicine and in ceremony, and afterwards I need to give myself space to integrate the experience. So next time we have an episode together, I'm going to probably be a very different human, because these medicines have been really, really powerful and transformative for me in the past. So that'll be interesting. We can get to know each other again. But this episode was really inspired by me booking a flight yesterday. So if you've been connected with me, you know that I have been living in Bali for 2.5 years. Bali has been home. And so going back to July of 2022, my intuition guided me to move across the world to a country I had never been to, didn't know a single person, didn't even know where it was on a map. But I had ignored my intuition enough in my life to know that I shouldn't ignore my intuition. And also Bali. That just sounded so magical. So that was July of 2022. And I'm like, all right, I need to transition out of my career in real estate and make some arrangements and things. But January 2023, I'm moving to Bali. And I did. And oh my goodness, what a beautiful journey it has been. Just the deepest portal of healing and transformation. I'm truly not the same person. It's a million times over as I was when I first arrived. I have died and been reborn more times than I can count. Bali has been my home and I love it here so much. But last night I purchased a one-way flight because I am leaving Bali. And even as I'm saying this, I'm like getting super emotional because I just love Bali so much. If you've ever been to Bali, then you get it. You get it. It's just such a special place. And it really just calls souls in to experience just the magic and the beauty of the land. I thought, oh my God, these tears out already. And I love it here. I could see myself here forever, but my intuition is guiding me to leave. And this is something that I've known for quite some time. And I'm not going to share the details yet of how all of this unfolded, because this has been orchestrating in the quantum and internally and behind the scenes for quite some time. I've known this was coming, but now that it's happening, it's it hurts. And also just how beautiful, truly just so grateful to just have a place that I love and loves me so much that makes it so hard to leave. But yeah, I am leaving Bali for now. Bali holds such a special place in my heart, and I intuitively know that I will be back someday. I just don't know when. I don't know what it's going to look like. I know I'm going to be a completely different person, so it's like this Bali chapter is ending, and I'm excited. You might not believe me, like I am so excited about what happens next, but this is the duality of the human experience. Everything exists all at once. So while yes, I am beginning this new chapter, and oh my goodness, I don't want to tell you where I'm going yet because I want it to be a bit of a surprise, or you might not be that surprised at all. But I'm just like, oh, it's gonna be a big surprise, and you're like, bitch, we knew this all along. But I have this vision of surprising you when it's unfolding and just letting it be an adventure, and it is, and it's so exciting, and I just intuitively know with every ounce of my being that I'm meant to be where I'm going next. But at the same time, whenever there is a new beginning, there is an ending of some sort. And whenever there's an ending, there's usually some kind of loss. And I spoke to this a bit in episode 1. And so often we just rush to the next chapter. We just rush to the new beginning, and we don't really give ourselves the space to be with the ending, which makes sense because I'm fucking sitting here recording, crying right now. Endings aren't that fun. It doesn't feel good to feel loss. There's grief, there's sadness, there's all the things. And yet it's only through feeling those things and being with those things that we get to really close that chapter. And sometimes we don't want to close that chapter. I don't fully want to close my Bali chapter. I want to stay here. I don't want to leave. I love my life here, but I also know what my intuition is guiding me to. And there's a lot of uncertainty in that. I have this intuitive knowing of where I'm meant to be next, but I don't fully know what it looks like. There's just a lot of uncertainty, which when you're creating a future that looks any different from your past, there has to be uncertainty, or else you're just repeating the past. But in order to really step into that new future, you have to be with the emotions of what was. And it's not like a check the box on your to-do list type of thing. No, this is going to be a journey of grief for me as I am closing out this chapter. I'm leaving Bali now in less than a month. I put off purchasing my ticket for as long as I possibly could because that just made it feel so much more real. But I've been in this season of grief, and at the same time, it's like I'm still here. I don't want to be sad while I'm still here, but our bodies and our subconscious and our intuition they're like a few steps ahead of us. Like our mind thinks it knows all the things and it's on top of everything. Like no, our minds are usually the last to know. So a lot of this has already been processing and moving through me. And in the last episode, I mentioned how I've been in this deep season of introspection and being with myself, and a lot of it is really just embodying and integrating every ounce of my Bali journey and what I'm still meant to really learn and receive while I am still here. So I put off purchasing my ticket for as long as possible, and my mom kept asking me, did you buy your ticket yet? Did you buy your ticket yet? I'm like, no, I will. Finally, I'm like, I need to actually just do it because time moves really fast, especially when you realize time doesn't exist. So I purchased my ticket last night, a one-way ticket, and oh my goodness, the way I cried, like if you thought I was crying now, oh my goodness, my heart it felt like it was breaking. And I know that might sound dramatic, but I'm literally leaving my home of the past 2.5 years and one of my most favorite places in the entire world because my intuition told me to. And this is the conversation that I really want to have with you today, is that I feel like there's this misconception often about following your intuition, that it just feels like roses and rainbows and butterflies and you're just like skipping down the path and it's like this beautiful golden path and it just feels so good. And yeah, sometimes it does. And a lot of the time, it doesn't. A lot of the time, following your intuition makes no fucking sense. A lot of the time, following your intuition fucking hurts. It like guts you and breaks your heart. And that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it takes a lot of courage to actually follow it. And for me to ignore this intuitive knowing that I'm meant to leave Bali for now would really be me living out of integrity with myself, with my work, with my teachings, with the way that I support women, and also just out of alignment with my life, because our intuition is always, always, always guiding us. It's truly this internal compass that we have, and we disconnect from it. We are born very connected to our intuition, and then we disconnect from it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We're not going to go too much into it today, but we are taught to trust others over our intuitive knowing. We live in a very, very, very busy and loud world, and there's so much external noise that it can be challenging to hear our intuition, which is very much this subtle internal experience. And in order to actually connect with your intuition, you have to be connected with your body, because that's where your intuition lives, not in your mind. And so often we're disconnected from our body. So you could see there's a lot of things that are kind of stacked up against us actually listening to our intuition. So a lot of the time, we don't even hear our intuition. And then when we do hear it, we may try to ignore it because it may be guiding us to do something that we don't really want to do. Maybe our intuition is guiding us to leave a relationship that perhaps is not completely toxic, but it's just like, it's fine, right? And ultimately your soul and your higher self know that you are settling and that you are meant for more, and you're being guided to leave the relationship, but you still really love the person. It's not like there's a problem. And that's just one example. And I'm not telling you to leave your relationship because there's something better for you out there. I'm just using this as an example of sometimes our intuition just doesn't make sense. Sometimes our intuition is guiding us to turn down a job opportunity, even though it seems like a good opportunity and we're not sure if something else is going to come around, but we just have this deep knowing that it's not meant for us. Sometimes our intuition is guiding us to move across the world to a country we have never been to, and then 2.5 years later guiding you to leave the country that you have since fallen in love with, and to once again just leap and dive into the abyss of the unknown, which is where possibility lives. So most of the time, following our intuition doesn't make sense, and it's not supposed to, because the mind is what wants things to make sense. Our intuition is beyond our mind, so it oftentimes can't even make sense from this present moment and from our current vantage point. But I can tell you what, following my intuition to move to Bali in the first place makes so much fucking sense. It was truly part of my soul's destiny, but it takes so much courage to trust yourself and to follow your intuition and to say yes, even when, and especially when it doesn't make sense. And now, of course, I have to mention the nervous system because I am a somatic healer after all, and also your nervous system is so important because it is actually responsible for your entire experience of life. Again, that is another episode. But as we are following our intuition, we do want to be sure that we're also honoring where we're at from a nervous system standpoint. This goes back to the conversation that we had in the previous episode where we're discussing, is it our intuition and alignment, or is it a trauma response? So yes, our nervous system needs to be taken into consideration. But the more that we can really develop the practice and devotion of following our intuition, even when, and especially when, it doesn't make sense, the more that we are being guided exactly to where we're meant to be. But at the same time, you're always where you're meant to be, or else you wouldn't be there. But on this journey of expansion in your soul's evolution, we are always being pulled in a direction. And sometimes we take some detours, and those detours are necessary. My entire journey has been built on detours, and ultimately, it's how I was able to learn the lessons that I needed to learn that I now get to share with the women in my coaching programs, which is so beautiful. So that was truly part of my soul's path all along. Now I want to share a story with you where following my intuition made no sense whatsoever, and then ultimately it did make a lot of sense. So you might not know this, but you probably do know that I absolutely love Fred again. If you're not familiar with Fred again, he's a musician. Go listen to him. I would say right now, go listen to him after this episode because his music is incredible. He's one of my soul artists, and I actually have tattoos on my body in reference to his music. That's just the level of love I have for his music, and also just the depth that his music has touched my life. And a lot of my tattoos actually have references to music because, especially at the beginning part of my journey, some of my soul artists just allowed me to connect with myself and to feel feel things that I had never felt before. And it really created this safe space for me to explore more of myself and connect with myself on deeper levels. So I discovered Fred again. I don't know, maybe it was like 2021, beginning of 2022, probably sometime end of 2021, beginning of 2020. That was did not roll off my tongue. Beginning of 2022. Don't quote me on the timeline, and also the timeline isn't that important. But Spotify has recommendations sometimes, and I don't know if it was my Discover Weekly playlist or Release Radar or something, but this song came on. It was Faisal. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is the most beautiful song I have ever heard in my entire life. I probably listened to it for about a week straight before I was like, oh, I wonder if this artist has any other songs. And that was just the beginning of this love affair, like truly a love affair. I'm still convinced that we are probably getting married at some point. We're not, but that's the level of love that I have. And I actually manifested him playing a show on my actual birthday back in 2022. It was in San Francisco. So I flew to San Francisco and got to see him play on my birthday, which was so special. I got to see him perform the following day at a festival also in San Francisco. And then I got to see him play with Rufus Du Sol, who was another one of my soul artists, and they played at this beautiful venue in Washington. It's called The Gorge, and it's this incredible amphitheater, and it's like set in the mountains, and the way the sun sets, it's stunning. So that was like truly just like such a core moment, core memory in my life. I actually manifested Fred again playing a show in Bali. This was so magical because I manifested Rufus Du Sol playing a show in Bali last year. Went and saw them play. That was an interesting experience. We're not going to go into that story now because it'll be too much of a tangent. But I just knew that I was going to see Fred again in Bali. I had been feeling it and seeing it, but as my timeline in Bali was kind of coming to an end, I'm like, I don't know, just kind of like dismissed it a bit. But then a friend of mine shared a post where he announced that he was playing a show in Bali. And it's literally like less than 2 weeks before I leave. The timing is just divine, and it just feels like this celebratory moment of who I've become in Bali. But anyway, that's coming up. I'm excited for that. So last year I had been feeling really, really called to sit with ayahuasca. And the facilitators were really, really important to me because I really wanted to sit with people, especially for my first time, that were really honoring the indigenous tribes and traditions, and also that I just felt really, really safe with. And I had this pull to ayahuasca. It was probably for more than a year. 2023? Yeah, 2023 was my year of psilocybin. Really went deep with psilocybin. And after that, I had been feeling this pull towards ayahuasca. When the grandmother calls, you know. But it also felt like something I didn't need to rush. It was just kind of like my awareness of like feeling out different facilitators. Last year, this story has a few like pockets to it, but I promise it's gonna all come together. So simultaneously last year, my mom told me that my sister and my brother and her and my dad were all going to be in Washington in August. Now, mind you, I was not planning on going back to the US in August. I was planning on going back to the US in December for the holidays like I did the previous year to spend Christmas with my family because I mean, there's a lot to say about Christmas and the holiday season and consumerism and capitalism, and my experience of the holidays has definitely shifted as I've gone deeper on my own personal journey, but it's still this magical experience, and I really enjoy spending the holidays with family. So I thought that's what I was going to do. So initially I'm like, I don't really want to go to Washington in August. Now, mind you, summers in the Pacific Northwest are magical. Like, if you're gonna visit Washington State, go in August. That's probably the best time to go, and it's truly one of my favorite places still. Mostly because I discovered my soul there. That's another conversation. I decided to go to Washington in August after all because it just felt like a really special experience to be able to be with my entire like immediate family and like their now extended family. So my parents parents, my sister, her husband, and my niece and nephews, my brother, his wife, niece and nephews. Well, actually my niece wasn't born then, so just nephews. And we had all been kind of living all over in different places. My sister was still living in Portugal. I was in Bali. My brother was still in the military, so he was kind of all over. So it was a rare opportunity to be with the entire family. So I'm like, all right, this feels really special. I can get over my ego's preference of wanting to be in Florida for Christmas. And then I found out that one of my mentors was hosting an ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica. And Costa Rica, along with ayahuasca, is something that had really been in my field. I was just feeling this pull towards it. And when I found out that she was hosting this ayahuasca retreat with her teacher, it was just like a yes, like this is where you are meant to sit with ayahuasca. And it's interesting because had I not already agreed to go to Washington, I'm not sure if I would have actually gone to the retreat. I probably would have, but Washington to Costa Rica is a lot closer than Bali to Costa Rica. So it just made so much sense to go to this retreat. So I went, and that experience definitely deserves its own episode because holy fuck, okay. Not what I expected. I don't think you can really know what to expect with ayahuasca, but yeah, that's a whole separate episode. But after going to Costa Rica for the ayahuasca retreat, I decided to stay in Costa Rica for a little bit longer. And that was actually my longest time away from Bali since moving here. I was actually away from Bali for about 3 months, and everything just kept teeing up the next. It was almost like dominoes, but it's like if I hadn't said yes to this, then this opportunity wouldn't have happened, and then that wouldn't have happened. So again, our intuition needs us to say yes, because if we say no, then we're never missing out on anything. Don't let scarcity and lack come in, but ultimately when we say yes, that's where more magic gets to unfold. So I am in Costa Rica, and I'll have to do an entire episode about my time in Costa Rica because it was just incredible. But after my time in Costa Rica, I was going back to the US to speak at an event in Austin. And this is one of those things where if I hadn't said yes to Washington and I hadn't said yes to Costa Rica, then I wouldn't have said yes to this opportunity to speak at an event in Austin, Texas, because I would not have flown from Bali just for this event. Maybe I would have, but probably not, because we like to talk ourselves out of things, but it just made so much sense. So that event was like middle of October. So arrived in Costa Rica for the ayahuasca retreat end of August, stayed until the end of October. So I'm in Costa Rica having the most magical experience, and I see that Fred again is playing a show in Texas. And I'm like, yes, I actually manifested this, because I had been wanting to see Fred again and again. He was actually playing a show in Washington, but I was after I left and was in Costa Rica. But then I saw he was playing this show in Texas, and it wasn't in Austin. I think it was in maybe Dallas, so it wasn't too far. And I'm like, I can't not see him. I'll just go to Texas a week early before I need to be in Austin for my event. I'll see the show, and then I'll just hang out in Austin for a bit, because Austin's a pretty cool place. So I get my ticket, and I'm like, yes, this is happening. I can't wait to see Fred again. It's gonna be amazing. And I'm in Costa Rica, and truly just so much magical shit is happening, and it's approaching that time to buy my flight to go to Texas for Fred again, and then the speaking event after. And I just had this intuitive knowing. Well, intuitive knowings for me often involve a bit of resistance, especially if my mind is not fully on board. And this goes back to this whole idea that sometimes following your intuition doesn't feel that good, and it might not be like what we want or what our ego prefers or what our conditioning and our trauma prefer. So I noticed that I was putting off purchasing my flight to go to Texas, and I was gonna fly to Dallas and then I'd fly to Austin. So there was a bit of logistics, and I don't know about you, but I just feel like booking flights is the most annoying thing. I don't know why. There's just so many options, and I just don't enjoy it at all. So part of me wasn't surprised that I was putting it off, because I tend to put off purchasing flights. I'm pretty sure there's two types of people in the world. People who just book flights right away and are excited about it, and then people who just put it off. I don't know if I know any of that first type of person, so maybe I made that up and they don't really exist. But anyway, I noticed myself putting off purchasing my flight. And whenever I notice myself putting something off, whether it is rescheduling my Botox appointment, we talked about that in one of the previous episodes. That was like me trying to disregard this intuitive knowing that Botox isn't in alignment for myself anymore. And now putting off purchasing the flight. Whenever you notice yourself procrastinating or putting something off, get curious. So I got curious and I realized that I had this intuitive knowing that I was supposed to stay in Costa Rica. I was not supposed to go to the Fred Again show. And I was pissed. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not gonna go to the Fred Again show? Like, that makes no sense. Like, I can't not see Fred Again. And he's my favorite artist. Like, what do you mean I'm not gonna go to the show? But it was just this very deep inner knowing of like, you're not meant to be there. You're meant to stay in Costa Rica. And I didn't know why. And sometimes we never know why when we're following our intuition. Sometimes we're being guided to something, and sometimes we're being guided away from something, and it's actually protection. And in those circumstances, we never know why. But oftentimes it does make sense after the fact. And in this case, with not going to the Fred Again show, it did make sense after the fact. After the heartbreak of like, I'm not going to see Fred again. And I couldn't even sell my tickets, and I was out a few $100s, which it's not a big deal. Like, being out a few $100s versus following your intuition, like, take the loss, babe. It's not a loss. Like, you're just making an investment into your future. But at the same time, like, I felt a little bit of heartbreak. I'm like, I just want to go and I just want to be there and it's going to be so fun. But I'm like, I'm just not meant to be there. I'm going to honor that. And then I did end up booking my flight for when I had to be in Austin. And I ended up booking the flight to arrive the same day that I needed to actually be there for the speaking event that I was a part of. And my very last night in Costa Rica, now mind you, I fell in love with Costa Rica and it was just such a beautiful experience for me there. So my very last day in Costa Rica, I am walking on the beach, and this is in the afternoon, and I see some police up ahead on the beach, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. I wonder what happens. And I see a friend, this guy I knew, walking towards me, and I'm like, what's happening up there? And he's like, there's a turtle laying eggs. You should go check it out. And I'm like, wow, that sounds so cool. So I walk over, and the police were there just to make sure that no one got super close and like disturbed her, because there was this pretty big sea turtle digging a hole and laying her eggs. And it was one of the most beautiful things I have ever witnessed, because at this point she hadn't just started, and you could just tell how exhausted she was. It was just this laborious act, and seeing her just give her all, like, wow, sea turtle, you're just giving it, digging your hole, and she's laying her eggs. And I just stood there, and I'm pretty sure I cried just witnessing the beauty of it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not just gonna stand here all day. She's just digging her hole, laying her eggs. So I go on my beach walk, and then I come back to that same area, and now the sun is starting to set, and the sky is turning into this magical masterpiece of the most beautiful colors. There's incredible sunsets in Costa Rica, and this one was one of the most vibrant and beautiful that I had seen. So then the sun is setting, and then I see this sea turtle. Now, it's been hours. She was digging and laying her eggs the whole time. She's now starting to make her way back to the ocean. And at this point, the exhaustion, you could just see it in her. She's like moving so slow, and she's making her way slowly back to the ocean. And now I'm having a full-on moment, and in such awe of this magnificent creature. And the codes I received from her were profound. Like, sea turtles are one of my new spirit guides. Seals were the initial ones, and I also have a connection with lions and wolves. But this sea turtle and the wisdom that she shared with me was profound. So as I'm like watching her just like slowly make her way back to the ocean, and the sun is setting, and I'm just like in awe of her. And it's like she's living in her purpose. She truly is just so devoted to what she came to this earth to do, to create life. She laid her egg, she gave it her all. She then just left because that's what she has to do. It's not like the sea turtles just stay there and like sit on the nest. No, she left, and just deep trust and knowing that she did what she was meant to do. Now, mind you, the survival rate for sea turtle eggs and sea turtle eggs becoming like actual sea turtles is significantly low. It's like, don't quote me on this, but it's like less than 3%. And I know this because I did some research on it, but I didn't memorize all the statistics, so don't quote me on that. But I was just in such awe of her and of how like she just had such trust and surrender of like, no, I did what I'm meant to do, and now I'm going back into the mystery of the sea and living my life. And oh my goodness, it was just such a profound moment to just really feel that experience and to feel her ancient wisdom in my body. So I'm taking all that in. The sun is still setting. And then I turn around and I see the full moon starting to rise, and it was a super moon, and it was just so big and so vibrant. I still remember just how it took my breath away. I was like, are you kidding me? And so that entire experience was just so magical and truly so transformative to be able to have that experience and to receive those divine codes and wisdom and to feel the embodiment of it. And that was really why I was meant to miss the Fred Again show, because I was meant to have that experience. So it makes sense. Long story, not so short. Most of the time, following your intuition doesn't make sense in the moment. And not only does it not make sense, it's often going against what does make sense. I mean, even what I'm doing now, like leaving Bali, where I'm moving to next, none of it makes any sense, but I have this deep intuitive knowing. But following our intuition usually requires us to some degree to go against the preferences of our ego, to go against our subconscious and perhaps conscious conditioning, to go against our patterns, because we're coming into greater alignment with our soul. So we usually feel even more resistance to following that path because we have so much momentum going in another direction. But ultimately, your intuition is always guiding you to where you are meant to be. So it is really important to be able to develop your connection to your intuition, and more than that, to be able to actually trust it, especially when it doesn't make sense, because it often won't. So coming back to our oracle card, Sophia, the divine plan, wisdom, intelligence within, destiny. I mean, this is literally the definition of your intuition. So thank you, universe. Thank you for being on brand with our episode for today. So that being said, as I am recording this episode, less than a month still here in Bali, and I have quite a few exciting things happening, and also there's like so much more that I want to do that I feel like I haven't done, and I'm like, yeah, just feeling it all, and it's so bittersweet because I know to some degree what's coming next. I also have no idea what's coming next. And yeah, this is the duality of our human experience, because everything exists all at once. So feel it all, because that's why we came here. Our souls chose to come here to feel and to experiences, which is ironic that we tend to try to disconnect and numb our emotions, but such is life. But feel your emotions, follow your intuition, and thank you for joining me for this episode. It felt good. And another part of my experiment that I forgot to mention was that in those other episodes that I shared, specifically episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1 through 4, and also episodes 5 and 6 that maybe I'll share one day, maybe I won't, and that's okay too. But in those episodes, I had notes, and nothing wrong with notes, but I found myself trying to read them, and I was very much in my mind and not coming from my heart and my soul and letting my message just move through me, because I just felt like I needed to read my notes, and I wasn't full on script like I initially did for Dear Dumb Bitch. The first few episodes of Dear Dumb Bitch, it was like full on script, and I was just reading it. There was no video back then, so that wasn't a thing, but it was just a different creative expression. It was basically me reading my written word, which I'm an author. I fucking love writing. I'm really good at writing, and sometimes what happens is when I sit down to brainstorm and outline these episodes, I just start writing them. Like I would be like I'm talking, but it's just coming through. And for me, they're different channels, my channel for writing and my channel for spoken word. So I really want to develop both of them, and then they get to work together. yeah, for the first couple episodes of Dear Goddess, I had some notes, and I found was just keeping me in my mind and keeping me really disconnected from my message and how I really desire to share it and show up. So for this episode and the previous episode, there were no notes whatsoever, not even like an outline. It was really just a practice of me experimenting and trusting myself that I'm going to share what I need to say in the way that it needs to be said. And trust is a choice, and trust is also a practice. So thank you for holding this space for me to practice stepping into more of myself and of trusting myself on deeper levels. Like, truly, it's such an honor to be able to share my journey and my work with you, and I'm also receiving so much from you. Because of you, I get to do what I do. So thank you for holding the space for me. Thank you for letting me hold this space for you. And with just a few announcements and general reminders, bonus journal prompts and embodiment rituals, I send them out for every episode. Link is in the show notes, so that way you can receive them. And if you are interested in learning more about my coaching programs, I have coaching programs that help women navigate the aftermath of toxic relationships, whether you just left or you have been out of the relationship, but you still feel stuck, and perhaps you're starting to notice other toxic patterns in your life, and using those experiences as a catalyst for awakening and embodying your divine feminine and for just full-on life reinvention. And if you're looking for just general support on your journey as well, navigating this path of healing and transformation and coming into more of your divine feminine power, I also support women with that. So I will put the link in the show notes to learn more about my coaching programs. Send me a message on Instagram. Let me know how this episode resonated with you. I'm curious if you can kind of feel the energetic difference between the first couple episodes versus these. I definitely felt it, and I'm also looking forward to just the continual evolution of the podcast. So thanks for sticking with me for some of these initial episodes, especially as they might feel a little clunky, which is what happens when you're doing something new. And in many ways, the podcast isn't new, but it's a new version of me coming up to it. Also have the review contest. This is going through the end of July. So depending on when you are listening, but really whenever you're listening, it really means so much to me for you to leave a review of the show. Take a screenshot of it, share it on your stories, tag me. I'll send you a free masterclass of your choice, and you'll also be entered to win a free session with me. And that is all. I think those are all the announcements that I had for you. Next episode will be probably a completely different version of me. We'll get to know each other again, unless I release one of the episodes that I recorded before. So it'll be a surprise to be determined. Neither one of us knows. But that is all for now. So thank you again for being here, and I'm sending you so much love. Until next time.